All right, so today we're diving into Ina Garten's memoir, Be Ready When the Luck Happens.
Sounds delicious.
It is, her cooking, of course, but
Mhm.
this book is really about her whole journey, how she built this incredible career and the life lessons she learned along the way.
I think what's really interesting is how she kind of weaves all these different themes together. It's not just a straight timeline of her life, but it's about how each experience really shaped her and led her to where she is today.
Yeah, it's definitely not like a tell-all celebrity chef story.
Yeah,
There's a lot more depth here, for sure.
exactly. And to really understand it, I think we need to start at the beginning with her childhood, which, believe it or not, wasn't all sunshine and roses, at least not when it came to her love for food.
That is surprising. I mean, she just seems so at home in the kitchen, so confident. But her parents weren't exactly the biggest cheerleaders, it seems.
Yeah, it's funny how that lack of support early on actually kind of fueled this desire for connection in her. That need to create something beautiful and share it with people. That's a theme that keeps coming back throughout the book.
It really makes you wonder how she even got started. Was there like a specific moment where that passion just clicked for her?
Well, she always loved cooking, but things really took off after she met Jeffrey. That first date story is just classic. I mean, no fake ID. So instead of a bar, they end up at a coffee house.
I love that story. It's like fate stepping in. And Jeffrey becomes this amazing force in her life from that point on, always pushing her to try new things and follow her dreams.
He really saw something in her, maybe even before she saw it in herself. Like pushing her to take squash lessons, insisting she study history, always encouraging her to get outside her comfort zone.
And that squash lesson story is hilarious. Here's Imina, this amazing cook who can't hit a ball to save her life, and Jeffrey the diplomat is a natural. It's a good reminder that we all have our own strengths.
It is, and how important it is to have someone who believes in you and pushes you to grow even when you doubt yourself.
Oh, and Ina definitely takes some leaps of faith. Learning to fly a plane, that crazy helicopter incident.
Okay.
She wasn't afraid of adventure, that's for sure.
And that's where we start to see those key themes emerge, embracing challenges, taking risks, trusting your gut. She doesn't run from the unknown, she kind of runs towards it.
Which makes me think that maybe that's what led her to buy Barefoot Contessa in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a leap of faith. No
Yeah.
experience running a business, and she just goes for it.
Yeah, it's like she took that fearlessness she learned from flying and applied it to her career. That willingness to learn as she goes, to figure things out. That's a big part of why she was successful.
But it wasn't all easy, right? That Memorial Day weekend story where they sell out of everything and Jeffrey's running back and forth to the bakery is hilarious, but also sounds pretty stressful.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's that story about the drug dealer's party with that tiny oven fiasco. Those early challenges really show how resourceful she is, always thinking on her feet and finding creative solutions.
It's inspiring for sure, but also a little intimidating. Like, I'm not sure I could whip up a gourmet meal on a tiny oven with a blowtorch.
That's where I think the real lesson comes in. It's not about copying her exactly, but more about her approach. What's important is that she didn't panic. She figured out a way to make it work.
It's like a life metaphor. We all have those moments where things go sideways. It's how we react that makes the difference.
Exactly. And that's something we can actually practice in our own lives, whether it's a work project or a dinner party gone wrong. We can learn to adapt and improvise.
Speaking of dinner parties, I'm curious how running Barefoot Contessa impacted her personal life, especially her marriage. It couldn't have been easy balancing everything.
Right. And Anya is pretty open about the struggles they went through. The traditional roles they had weren't working anymore. She needed to be an equal partner in the business and in their marriage.
And she was willing to have those difficult conversations with Jeffrey. You can tell they have a very honest relationship where they work things out together.
It's a good reminder that even great relationships take effort and communication, especially when things are changing. It's not about being perfect. It's about growing together.
Okay, but we have to talk about those early catering stories. They're just gold. The blow incident, the salmon in a tiny oven saga, every event had some kind of mini disaster.
But that's what makes it so relatable, right? We've all been there juggling a million things and something goes wrong. It's about being able to laugh at those situations and not take ourselves too seriously.
And Iana definitely has that down. Never loses her cool, even when she's probably freaking out inside. That's a skill we could all use a little more of.
Absolutely. And it also shows how resilient she is. Those setbacks didn't stop her. She learned from them, laughed about them, and kept moving forward.
And through it all, she's building this incredible brand synonymous with good taste and quality. But it was never just about the food, was it? There was something deeper going on, like creating a sense of community.
Right. And that's where her personal growth really starts to connect with her professional success. She's not just running a business, she's building a place where people feel welcomed and well fed.
And a lot of that comes from her own experiences, right? That longing for connection she had as a kid. It's like she created the kind of warm and inviting atmosphere she always wanted.
Exactly. And that's what makes her work so appealing. It's not just about recipes, it's about creating experiences, memories, and connections. It's something we can all relate to.
It really is like she's inviting us all into her kitchen, not just to cook, but to share a meal and connect with each other.
And that's a really powerful message, especially now when we're all so disconnected from each other and from the simple things in life.
I was thinking about the parts in the book where she talks about going to therapy, working through that self-doubt and realizing it all stemmed from those early criticisms she heard growing up. That's something a lot of people can relate to, I think.
It's really important that she was willing to address those feelings,
Hmm.
to actually seek help and understand where they came from. And through that process, she starts to find her own voice and her own sense of self-worth.
It's a good reminder that personal growth is a journey. It's about being honest with ourselves, challenging our own beliefs, and constantly trying to improve.
It's not always easy, but like Ina shows, it's often through those challenges that we discover what we're truly capable of.
Makes you wonder if that newfound self-awareness influenced some of her bigger life choices, like her decision not to have children. She's really honest and vulnerable about that in the book.
She makes it very clear that it was a conscious decision based on her own experiences. And it's a good reminder that we all have the right to choose our own path, even if it doesn't fit with what society expects of us.
And sometimes those choices lead us to things we never expected, like that story about the agapanthus incident, who knew a flower could spark a passion for gardening. It shows that we never really stop evolving and finding new things to love no matter how old we are.
It's about staying curious and open to new things and letting life surprise you a little.
Which is the perfect segue into one of the biggest themes in the book, the power of food and connection. For Ina, food isn't just about eating. It's a way to create community, to share joy, and to nourish our hearts as well as our stomachs.
And that comes through in everything she does, from her recipes to the way she entertains. She's not just teaching us to cook, she's teaching us to live better lives.
Yeah, teaching us to live better lives. I like that. And, one thing that really stands out to me is that balance she strikes between simplicity and elegance. Her recipes seem so accessible, even for someone like me, who's not exactly a master chef, but they always have that touch of sophistication.
It's true. It's like she's saying you don't need a million fancy ingredients or complicated techniques to make something delicious. It's more about choosing good quality ingredients, taking the time to prepare them and presenting them in a thoughtful way.
That's a great point. It's not about perfection. It's about being intentional. Putting a little extra care into those everyday moments, even if it's just setting a nice table for dinner or adding some fresh herbs to your salad. Making those little upgrades,
Yeah.
finding ways to make life a little more enjoyable and beautiful. Which, speaking of, we have to talk about her Paris apartment. It's not just a place to live. It's a reflection of her whole aesthetic, her love for France, and really her commitment to creating a space that feeds her soul.
Absolutely. And that renovation process, talk about tenacity, renovating in a foreign country with language barriers and all that. I think I would have given up way before she did.
Right. Those stories about her struggling with language are hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
I could just picture her trying to explain what an air conditioner is using hand gestures and broken French.
It just goes to show that even Ina, the queen of effortless elegance, has those moments where things get messy. But she doesn't let it get her down. She finds a way to laugh about it and keep going until she gets what she wants.
And in the end, she creates this sanctuary,
Yeah.
a place where she and Jeffrey can escape and just enjoy the simple things.
Yeah.
Which brings us to another big theme in the book, the importance of creating spaces that nurture our well-being.
I love that. It's so true. Whether it's a cozy corner in your house or a weekend getaway, having a space where you can recharge and find some balance is essential, especially in today's world.
Totally. It's about prioritizing self-care, taking time for the things that bring you joy and help you de-stress. And speaking of a world that can be stressful, let's talk about how she dealt with the pandemic. Things were so uncertain and scary, but she still found a way to connect with people and offer comfort.
Those cocktail hour posts on Instagram were the best, giant martinis joking around with Jeffrey. It was like a little window into their world, and it provided this much-needed sense of normalcy and fun during a really hard time.
It really did. And it shows her ability to adapt and find new ways to connect with her audience. Like she just knew what people needed, a sense of community, a reminder that we're all in this together, and of course, some delicious food and drinks.
It speaks to the power of humor and finding joy, even when things are tough. And, her new show, Be My Guest, is all about those intimate conversations and sharing life experiences. It's a perfect next step for her going from recipes to deeper conversations and connections.
It's like she's saying, let's have a meal and talk about life. And that willingness to be open and share her own experiences, that's what makes her so relatable and inspiring.
It reminds us that we all go through ups and downs, and there's strength in sharing those stories with each other.
And sometimes those connections can come from the most unexpected places, like filming with Taylor Swift for Food Network magazine. It's amazing how food can bring people together from different generations and walks of life.
It's a great example of how we have more in common than we think, and food can be that bridge that connects us all. It's like that feeling of breaking bread together, whether it's with a pop star or your neighbor. It creates this sense of shared humanity and belonging.
We all need that feeling, right? And as we move into the last part of our deep dive, I think it's important to focus on how we can apply these lessons from Ina's journey to our own lives. Okay, so we've talked about a lot from Ina's childhood to her success with Barefoot Contessa, how she built her business and her life. What does all this mean for us, the listeners? How can we take these inspiring stories and actually apply them to our own lives?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? And one thing that really stuck with me is that it's okay to not have it all figured out. She didn't start with like a perfect plan or anything. She just took it one step at a time and figured things out as she went.
She was okay with the unknown, which makes me think about how often we let fear hold us back.
Yeah.
We want to plan everything perfectly before we even take the first step.
I know it's so true. But Ina shows us that sometimes the most rewarding paths are the ones we don't expect. It's about being open to new possibilities, taking some risks, and trusting that even if things go wrong, we'll find a way to make it work.
Like that saying, leap and the net will appear. But with Ina, maybe it's more like leap and you'll learn to build the net on the way down.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about career risks, it's about being open to new things in all parts of our lives. Trying a new recipe, taking a class, even just talking to a stranger. You never know what you might discover.
Pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And speaking of discoveries, I was really inspired by how much she emphasizes lifelong learning. She never stops trying to learn new things and challenge herself.
It all goes back to embracing challenges as opportunities. Ina never shied away from something just because she didn't know how to do it. She jumped right in, whether it was flying a helicopter or perfecting a French pastry.
Even if it meant a near-death experience or a kitchen disaster.
Right. It's that willingness to try new things that we can all work on, that curiosity to step outside our comfort zone and learn. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could be as simple as a new cooking technique or reading a book about something you've never even thought about.
Keeping our minds engaged. Always learning. And it's never too late. Look at Ina. She found her passion for gardening later in life. You can find new things to love at any age.
Absolutely. And speaking of passion, that's another big message. Ina didn't become a chef because it was easy or because she thought she'd get rich and famous. She did it because she loved it, because it brought her joy.
And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, finding that thing that really lights them up. We get so caught up in what we should be doing that we forget to listen to what our heart is telling us.
Ina reminds us that it's okay to change course, to go after what we really want, even if it means taking a risk or starting over.
And sometimes it's not about making a huge change. It's about finding ways to bring those passions into our everyday lives. Setting aside time to paint, joining a book club, volunteering for a cause you care about. Little things that can make a big difference.
Making time for the things that feed our soul, And that brings us back to connection, which is really at the heart of everything Ina does.
It's true. And for her, food is often that bridge to connection. Creating those shared experiences with family and friends, those moments of warmth and togetherness, whether it's a casual dinner or a big holiday celebration.
And it's more than just putting food on the table. It's about the atmosphere, the feeling of being welcomed and comfortable where people can relax and connect on a deeper level.
Setting a nice table, lighting candles, playing music. Those little touches create a whole experience. It's something anyone can do regardless of their budget or cooking skills.
Exactly. It's about making the effort to create those special moments, showing people you care, especially now when it's so easy to feel disconnected.
And like Ina shows us, those connections are so important. They can help us through tough times. Like during the pandemic, her online community was a source of comfort and support for so many people, sharing recipes, stories, and even just a laugh.
It reminds us that we all need each other. We're not alone in our struggles, and there's strength in opening up and connecting with others. And those connections can come from anywhere online, in person. It doesn't matter as long as we're sharing something we care about.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Ina's world, I think the biggest takeaway is that life isn't about reaching a specific destination. It's about enjoying the journey. Embracing the challenges, following your passions, and building those meaningful connections that make life richer.
And if you need a little inspiration along the way, a little reminder that life is full of delicious possibilities, pick up a copy of Ina Garten's Be Ready When the Luck Happens.
You can find the link to buy it on Amazon in our episode description, along with a link to subscribe to One Book a Day on YouTube for more deep dives into great books. Until next time, happy reading and happy cooking.